Sweet. How you
Brilliant.
doing, man?
I'm doing good, thanks. How you doing?
Good, good, good. It's good to meet you virtually like this.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm
Um,
excited.
so my guest today is Savio Joseph. He's a magician, mentalist, and illusionist all the way from Canada. And he was one of the finalists on Canada's Got Talent. And I think I want to say it was 2020 or 2021.
For the show,
Yeah.
Canada's Got Talent was in 2022, I believe.
Oh,
So 2 years
2022.
ago
All
now.
right.
Yeah.
So what's life been for you like since the show?
Since the show, honestly, it's been amazing. Really, like the show was such a boost to my career, and it helped me really push myself and be in front of the right people, and it helped me just show the world my talent, really. And so, a lot of work after went into just pushing that a little bit more and using that to get more opportunities. So, I can't complain. It's been a lot of fun. Just more shows, more work, more opportunities. Really.
So, what kind of made you apply for Canada's Got Talent in 2022? Because, like, in the during the show, you say that you just finished your degree and kind of wanted to go for it. But is that why?
No, so I mean, I always wanted to do Got Talent, like ever since I was very young. I feel like I grew up watching Got Talent shows like America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent. Those are the two main ones, really. I think growing up, it was always cool just watching acts go on the show and be able to share who they are and their talent, their story, and things like that. Ooh, sorry about that.
That's right.
But yeah, so
Do you have to go
it
get
was
it or?
no, it's fine. I think it was just a package left at the door. But it was just cool watching people be on a show like that and share their talent. So it was something I've always wanted to do. Canada had a Got Talent, I think in 2012, but it only ran for about one season. So I was too young at the time. It wasn't really my thing. Then I was too young. I didn't know what I was doing. So I didn't really audition then. Uh, but years later, I tried auditioning for America's Got Talent. I didn't get in. Tried a few times, didn't happen, and I was always very frustrated because I was like, I really want to do this. I think it's my time, and it just never worked out for me. But then finally, I remember when I was graduating university, I saw an ad and it said it was Simon Cowell, and he was like, "Hey, Canada, we're bringing Got Talent to you." And I was like, "Oh my goodness! Like this is it. This is the reason." At that moment, it felt like all those no's were for this moment right here. So I saw the announcement, and it worked out so perfectly that it was right after my graduation. So as soon as I graduated, I had enough time to work on this and kind of prepare properly for it. And then when applications opened up, I sent in a submission, and the rest is history.
What's the audition process like?
So there's a pre-audition and then there's the actual audition, right? So the initial step is a submission online. There's a portal. You go to their website. You fill in a bunch of information, and then you submit a video of you performing and what you would do on the show. Once they've seen that, they'll kind of select based off of that pool of people who've submitted, and then you get invited to go and actually do an audition in front of the judges live and in person. The actual audition in person, it's a whole process. You're there for the day. They're bringing you around, filming different things, and then they let you know, hey, your time slot is at X. So for me, it was an evening slot. So I was there from 5, 6 in the morning to all the way in the evening when they did record my set. So I went in. Again, people think there's setups and things like that. There's nothing like that. The judges have no idea what you're doing. It's more so that the
Okay.
producers of the show, they want to know what you're bringing to the show. They can't just let anyone just randomly walk in. So they're just that's why you submit, and then they pick based off of that. And then yeah, you just go and audition, and they kind of guide you through the rest of the process.
So on your website, you say that you're from Kerala, right?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. So am I. Like, how did you
That's
get
amazing.
into magic? And also, I guess more importantly, what was it like telling your Malu parents that I don't want to do computer science? Magic is what I
uh,
want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? There's no simple answer to this. It was lots of conversations over many, many years. But I'll start with the origin. I started doing magic when I was about 10 years old. I got a little magic kit for a birthday from my parents, and that was kind of my initial hook. And it's a very common story for magicians. You get a magic kit, and that really starts your journey. I got the kit, and I was really excited because there's a lot of cool tricks that I could learn and then kind of share with family members. And as you could also probably attest to this with Molu parents, anywhere we go, there's family gatherings or things. If their child has some kind of talent, they want to be like, hey, he can do something. We'll get him to perform today or something.
Yeah.
So that was really my initial, I guess, performance stages. Right, it was in family parties and house gatherings and things like that. So that's how it started. And then at age 13, I got my very first paid show. I got paid $100 to do um, like a kid's birthday party somewhere in this
Okay,
area.
wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness, like, wow, like at 13, this was $100. It was a lot of money. And it wasn't just the money, it was the fact that like someone was willing to pay me for something that I was doing for fun. It was something I'd practice at home. So that kind of continued on from that point on. As I got older, I started doing more shows, charging more. And it became really like my, I guess, part-time job in a way because I was still in school. And so my parents were very supportive of it because it was part-time. But parents were very big on school. And my mom's a teacher. So it was one of those things where that was
Okay.
number one. And as long as that was in check, you're free to do whatever else you'd like to do. So I was always very studious growing up and making sure that those were all in check. So I think that kind of offset it allowed them to be okay with this stuff. And also my parents are very supportive. And I think they also had a bit of an artistic side to them. My mom likes dancing. My dad loved doing different things like acting and stuff when he was younger and plays and whatnot. So I think they both had that artistic side to them. And it was cool for them to see, me kind of do my own thing. That kind of continued. And then the conversation of university came up. I was good at computer science and I was like, I guess this is what I'm going to do. Went to school. And while I was in it, I was doing magic left and right. I think that's where it really exploded for me. I just did shows anywhere, everywhere. I was doing shows the night before exams, and so it just kept me going. And I also, again, was doing school at the same time, so it was very challenging. It was not easy balancing both. And in the entire time, I was always very transparent with my parents about the fact that I was doing these shows, and this is what I am. So I think when that conversation finally came of, hey, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. I'm going to pursue magic. It wasn't a surprise to them. Now, mind you, there's a lot of I'm skipping a lot here. I'm just giving you the Spark Note summary here. There's a lot of conversations of, what does this look like? How is this going to work? Because I don't come from a family of entertainers or people who did this kind of professionally or anything like that. So I'm the first. So there's a lot of questions of what does this look like? How are you gonna take care of yourself? All these things. And my parents did tell me at one point, it's like, look, we trust you and we want to support you, but our biggest fear is, we're not going to be around forever. We want to make sure that once we're gone, you're okay. And that's like, as parents, that's our biggest goal, right? And so I was like, um, that's a very like amazing thing for them to share with me. And I was like, listen, you guys did a lot of hard work moving, across the world to get here and give me a life here. And I think this happened for a reason, and I'm going to give it my shot and see how it works out. And it's been working for me so far. So no complaints. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer to
No,
answer
no,
your
it's all
question.
right. We've got time.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not an
yeah.
issue. What was do you remember what the first trick that you showed your parents were?
I don't remember the first trick for sure because it was something out of the box. Like I want to say it was something like a ball was in a little cup and it like disappears under the cup. It's a very common trick that's sold in a lot of magic kits. I want to say it was something like that, but I don't remember the exact first one because it was so long ago. I was 10 years old when I first did it. So
Uh, How do you progress as a magician? Like, obviously, you got the box of tricks when you were a
mhm,
kid, and then obviously you've built that up. And I've
mhm.
seen a lot of your videos and everything. Like the thing with the needle from the eye,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like, how do you kind of jump from that to that?
So the thing with magic is that there is no real blueprint per se, but there's a lot of resources, right? And I think it's one of the most documented art form where there's so many books and tools that you can use to learn. And so honestly, it's like once you get that magic bug, it's really just kind of diving in and learning. Now, the thing is, there's only so much you can learn from reading or watching videos. It really comes out to being on stage, right? You can learn about something and you try it out at home, but then you go on stage and you realize it's a completely different experience when you're in front of 100 people and there's lights, there's camera, there's music, there's so many little things. So I would compare it to something like, doing stand-up comedy. Really, it's like, yes, you can sit at home and write and practice, but you really have to get on stage and get that stage time. So for me, that was my progression. right? I started with the small tricks here and there, and then I would learn certain things, and then I'd go try it out on stage. And so when I was young, I would do everything. Like I keep saying, I'm not kidding. Like it would be, a random performance for 5 people over in a backyard. Sure, I'll be there. I'll do it. It was just for me. It was a testing ground really to try new tricks and see how those things work. And then once you kind of start working on that, you start seeing, okay, how do I work on my performances and my routines? How do I work on my speaking? How do I enunciate better? How do I just present myself better on stage? And that is a gradual progression. And again, there's no like one book that you read that will teach you all these things. It's more so trial and error over many years, and you kind of somehow figure things out. And then over time, you also make friends in the industry. You kind of see who else is doing it. You kind of learn from them, and especially starting on, I don't think there's any problem in imitating greatness. If you see an act that's really great, so, in the beginning, you might start imitating them. And I think I definitely had that. And then I kind of found my own kind of lane, my own voice in the space almost. And so, yeah, it was just over time, trial and error, and just figuring things out as I went.
Uh, How long does it take for you to kind of trial out one trick, or rather, like, let me just ask, make it more simple.
Yeah.
Like, what was the most difficult trick that you did, which took you the longest time to like, kind of learn and
Hmm.
progress?
So that's a really hard question to answer because there's a difference. So there's certain things like, for example, if you're learning a move, right? Like using a deck of cards, you're learning sleight of hand. There's certain moves that are very technical. So you need to understand the positioning and how to hold something, and then where your fingers are moving. And at first, it feels very knacky, and then over time, if you do it for, I don't know, like 100 hours, like eventually it becomes to feel a little bit more normal to you. So those kind of things take a lot of time, but it's not necessarily a trick or an act. It's more like you're working on a mechanic, a tool, which at the end of the day is going to be unknown to the watching spectator because you don't know what's happening. But that move is very helpful for me. So there's things like that. And then there's also like working on an act or working on a like an actual trick itself from beginning to end, the routine. Uh, Longest, I don't know, like couple months, a year, like that. There's some ideas that I just put in the back burner and it's just there, and sometimes I'll come back to it and I say, is there something I can work on for this? Actually, the Canada's Got Talent act that I did, the the second act that I did was a loosely based off of a routine that I an idea that I had a couple years ago, and again, it was in the back burner. And when this Got Talent show came around, I took pieces of that from my. I was like, wait, I had this idea once before. What if there was something here? And then I was just playing kind of uh, just like making a puzzle piece. Like it was just taking these pieces and putting it together, really, and figuring it out. So yeah, I would say a couple months to a year, and ideas are always ongoing. So sometimes there are ideas that are in the back burner, and who knows, maybe in 5 years I'll say, oh, I found a cool place to put this in, or something to work on with this.
Is it like original ideas, or are you building on the work that other people have done? Because I remember I used to watch a show, Penn and Teller, like
Yeah.
guess what other magicians do.
Hmm.
Is it like that? Do you kind of come up with your own ideas, or are you taking inspiration from other people?
Absolutely. Honestly, I stand on the shoulders of giants. A lot of magic has been done over X amount of years. And so it's very hard to think of a completely new idea. So in Magic, there are these pillars. I don't know the exact number. I want to say it's like seven or something, where it's like, these are the things you can do as a magician, right? Like eight, you can make one thing disappear. You can make something appear. You can make something. So these are kind of like basic pillars, right? That's like the bare bones of it. So it's hard to reinvent that because there's only so much you can do, right? Every magic trick can be classified in one of those kind of pillars. So from there, it kind of stems out and you kind of start building on it. There's a lot of things that I do that I've learned from other magicians, but there's also a lot of things that are completely original to me. So, for example, the the three acts that you see in Canada's Got Talent, there's elements of other magicians in there for sure. Like again, bases of ideas that came from it, but everything in that act was me and like my team. We put that together, and it was from the ground up. Wrote everything and the pieces that were put together in that order. So yeah, it's a mix really. So there's some things that I work on that are I've learned from a book or watching a video, and then there's other things that are completely original to my
Okay.
work.
When you say team, like, do you mean like there's a lot of people out there helping you, or
When I say team, it's like two people, really. It's
oh,
my
okay.
my friends who have come together to help. I have one person who's a magician who I kind of bounce ideas back and forth with, and he acts as my consultant, really, and he's like a bouncing board for ideas. And then I have another friend of mine who is a writer, and I use him as another sounding board for when I do write scripts for shows like this. Because for a show like Canada's Got Talent, every word is scripted to the T, because you need to know exactly where you're going to be. You need to know your timing. You need to know what you're saying. The only thing you can't anticipate is obviously what the other people will be saying. So you have to leave gaps for that. But yeah, that would be my kind of team. And then I also have like a few other people that help me with live shows when I'm, my crew, uh, cameras, and other stuff like that.
what is the difference between magic, illusionism, and mentalism?
So honestly, at the end of the day, I think they all fall under the same category of magic. It's more so just the same way how there's doctors who specialize in specific things, right? That would kind of be the difference here. So there's doctors who do, heart surgery. That's their specialization. Some are general practitioners. For me, I think the term magic encompasses all of it, but then the other ones kind of go specific. So, for example, the mentalism, mind reading, that's a very niche category of magic. Not everyone does. It has to do with the mind. It has to do with thoughts, and it has to do with influencing people, psychology, all these things, which were very fascinating to me from a young age. So that kind of naturally came in. The illusion stuff, again, it's a vague term. Really, it depends on what you do. It could be like the bigger scale props, or for me, it's more like the psychological illusions. I do hypnosis as well on stage, so it's really a lot to do with the mind, and that's kind of like the magic that I do, especially on stage and performances. So that's sort of the difference, I would say, with it. Where like sometimes you're doing card tricks, which would be classified as magic. You might be reading someone's mind and revealing information. That's kind of mind reading. And then hypnosis would be putting someone under a trance, and then you're getting them to do fun things on stage. So very specific, different niches, but they all fall under that category of magic at the end of the day.
Like, how much do people get freaked out when you do the mind reading stuff?
Very. It's what, but I think that's also why it's so fascinating, right? It's one of those things that sometimes, because I love all kinds of magic, by the way, and I do all kinds of like the card stuff. I do coins, everything. I kind of have a love for all of it, but my main area of focus is sort of things with the mind and of that nature. And honestly, at the end of the day, to people, I've noticed when I do something, let's just say. It's something with coins. I don't know. I'm making coin disappear, reappear, or something like that. People are very impressed. But then the moment I'm doing something with their mind, it becomes so personal. It's something that it's like, oh my goodness, and it's the impact is a little bit stronger at the end of the day. But again, this is not me in any way, shape, or form saying one is better than the other. It's more so I think they all have their own places, and people definitely do get really freaked out and ask me some really interesting questions when I do anything mind reading related, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that people are probably kind of scared that you're gonna get them to spill all their secrets and that kind
Yeah,
of stuff, right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But
Um,
that's the fun of it, though, right?
yeah, definitely. Um, like, is there any kind of specific person that is best suited for, well, to be hypnotized, or um, like, are most people quite susceptible to hypnosis, or is there like a certain kind of person that you kind of have to target for a show?
So I do believe that anyone can be hypnotized. It's just that some people will go into it a lot faster. In the context of a show, I have what, an hour, 60 minutes, sometimes 90. So I am picking the best of the group that I do have. And I do a number of
Okay.
tests that I use to kind of see if those people are good or not. Um, I would say you want to be open minded and creative. Like if you're able to have a good imagination and really picture a lot of the things that I say, because a lot of these tests that I do, it's with your eyes closed, and I'm asking you to imagine these things. And if you're having a hard time doing that, or the other alternative is if you're just not doing what I'm telling you to do, it's obviously not going to work, right? It's a guided process that I'm taking you through. And sometimes
Okay.
people do this. People come up on stage and they sit there with their arms crossed. They're like, "Yeah, you're not going to be able to hypnotize me." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, because you don't want to be hypnotized, right?" It's one thing to say, "I do want to be hypnotized. I want to try this, and then I want to come up on stage and do this." And it's another to say, "Yeah, it's not going to work on me. You're not going to do it to me." It's like, "Yeah, I know. You're
Okay.
closed off." It's something you have to be very open minded to trying, really, for it to work. But yeah, that would kind of be it. And I do a couple of tests. I bring about 20 to 30 people up on stage, and I'll let certain people go if they're not kind of working for what I needed to. But I definitely think anyone can be hypnotized for sure.
Um, like, so when you do the hypnosis, like, obviously you said you've got like an hour to hour and a half in a show. Um, do you start doing all of the processes and the suggestions and all of that stuff at the start, or is it like in Now You See Me, I think, where you start like weeks ahead or whatever?
Well, I definitely don't start weeks ahead. I don't have the liberty of knowing an audience that far out, but it definitely does work from the beginning, right? Because there's a lot of things that, again, the audience knows that is happening, and there's a lot that the audience doesn't know, and some of it is purely just based off of impression as well, right? So from the beginning, when I come out on stage, I'm commanding, the attention of an audience and the respect from the audience, and based off of that, I'm building off of the things that I'm doing, and all the material that I do in the beginning of the show, which is all the mind reading stuff that I usually start with. Again, it ties right into hypnosis and the mind, and it working in that manner. So it definitely does start from the beginning of the show, and it sets that tone from the beginning. Now, mind you, there are certain times where they're like, "Hey, we're booking you in. We only have 45 minutes," so I just walk on stage and I go right into it. Now, the thing is, you asked about Now You See Me. I think it's a phenomenal, movie and series. I think the new one's coming out next year or the year
Yeah.
after.
Oh, again. Okay.
Yeah, they got another one in the works. But the thing is, sometimes in movies, it is over like they make it seem like magicians and hypnotists are walking around and they're just hitting people, boom, and they're knocking out and they're setting it up months in
Yeah.
advance. Mind you, I guess if a hypnotist really had that kind of time on their hands and they really wanted to hypnotize someone and had 24/7 to just work on something like that, maybe it's possible. But for the most part, again, we're arriving to a venue on the day of. We're meeting the audience for the first time, so it really starts when the show starts, and you're kind of, or actually, I would say it starts from the advertising of the show, right? Because from there, you're already setting an expectation, a tone from the beginning, and then from the moment they walk in, they're excited, they know what they're walking into. So yeah, I would kind of start from there, and then to start from the actual starting of the show.
How long do you kind of hold on to like something that you do? Like, do you kind
Mm.
of tell people how you've done it, or like how long does it take? Well, I guess how long does it take till like someone's like figured out like how you've done something?
I mean, I'm not really sure because my goal is never to play that game of like, hey, you should figure this out. Uh, Holding on to something, again, it's tough because sometimes there's certain tricks you start working on and it's not that good in the beginning because it's so early. But by holding on over time, you start to learn, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. Maybe I should try this, move this around, and something gets better over time. So there's certain things that I still do that I started doing when I was 14 years old, but like from 14 to now, I've put in so much time into it that I know every beat of that trick now that I can get that optimal reaction that I want. And again, like my goal is not to come out here and fool you. Absolutely, like that is a byproduct of what I do. Like I want to make sure my magic is so good that it will fool, but it's not my first goal. The goal is amazement and wonder, right? It's like I want to make sure that in the hour I have with you, I want to give you that feeling of wonder, that we all had when we were kids, but we lose as we get older. But again, like I said, I would be lying if fooling wasn't a part of it. Obviously, I don't want to do magic that you're sitting there and going, "Oh yeah, he just did this," and his hand was over there, and right. That's not the goal. But again, at the end of the day, it is a byproduct of the work that I do.
Um, do you think that like, well, I don't know, like has you kind of pursuing magic
Hmm.
helped kind of your parents like kind of rekindle their passion for like the stuff that they used to do, or
Mm. I think yes, for sure. I like honestly, like it's helped them open their eyes a little bit more and see that like it truly is possible. I think we're so lucky because we came up in a time and generation where we were able to see that people can pursue their passions and dreams and make a living doing it, right?
definitely.
Whereas our parents came from a generation of real hard work and just not saying this generation doesn't work hard, but I'm saying their definition of hard work is a little different. Regardless of your circumstance, you had to go do things and make sure it was done, and moving and finding jobs and doing these things where it was really, I think, more survival, right? Whereas for us, A lot of us, we're so privileged to have our parents who've done those things, and now we can take that step
100%.
back and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to spend, 4 or 5 months just working on this thing that I can maybe make work and make happen. So I think just by leading by example here, like just showing them that, hey, look, I am doing this, I'm pursuing this, I think is definitely helped them tap into their creative side a little bit more. And also, I think another thing it's really helped with is the conversations, right? Because I think one thing that was a little tough for me, especially with this Malu community, is that like there was a lot of love, but there's also a lot of the other part of it as well, right? There's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
talking. There's a lot of people who are very doubtful and a lot of negativity that comes. Now, mind you, like I don't want to, I'm not hating on the community at all. Like when I was on Got Talent, the outpouring of love was just overwhelming. Really, it was insane. But the truth
Yeah.
I am saying is, growing up, there was a lot of mixed. There's people who were supportive of it, and there's a lot of you know talking and this and, oh, why is he doing that, and why is he doing this, or you shouldn't be pursuing that. It's not really good for you. Whatever the
Yeah, I
conversations were,
can
there was a lot
imagine
of it.
that.
You know. Yeah, and it's tough, but I think in doing this, I've been able to help change some of these conversations. I've heard parents who've come talk to me and said, "Hey, it was really cool that you did that. Like, we're thinking of doing helping our son do this." And I'm like, that kind of stuff, like, it warms my heart so much because it's like
That's
I
so
didn't have
sick.
that. It's yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like you just would not expect um, that kind of conversation where parents literally help their kids pursue the arts, like within the
yeah.
Mali community. Like it's just not a thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, mind you, I don't think I made a groundbreaking change where they're going to be like, "Yeah, I just go and do whatever." But I think I definitely think I've helped start some conversations, which is all I wanted, really, like just to spark that convo. Because I think a little flame can turn into a big fire over time if it's fanned enough, and it comes with the support. Because at the end of the day, I think there's so many talented people in the Malu community that unfortunately, because of their environments and their surroundings and the talk that exists around them, they don't pursue these things further because, again, they're not hearing that it is possible. And so, again, back to your initial question, I think it really helped my parents uh, be a bit more like, hey, like we can do certain things and have fun. But mind you, my parents were always like that. They were very bubbly from the beginning. They're always very excited to do things. But I definitely think it's opened their eyes a lot more now that I am doing it and making a good living doing magic and doing tricks. Really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Like how often are you kind of on the road then?
So
Like,
it
I mean,
depends. Yeah.
sorry, yeah, go on.
No, it really depends. Honestly, I'm the type of person, I don't like doing a million shows in a year. Like I am very selective. I only handpick a handful of shows in the year, and there's certain times where it gets busier, and certain times it slows down for me. There's times where I'm on the road for 2 3 weeks back to back, and then there's times where I'm home for a month, which I really like. Though I like the fact that I can pick and choose when I'm busy, when I'm not. And again, I don't want to do a million shows. I chose magic because it was a passion of mine. I didn't want to make it another job where I'm doing like a million shows. Now, mind you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. There are some magicians who prefer to be doing, 30 shows in a weekend. I'm exaggerating, but you get what I'm saying. Like they're doing so many shows in a weekend, back to back to back. Whereas for me, from early on, from just again reading about business and how to grow a business, because at the end of the day, that is what this is. I've learned that you can increase your fee and lower the amount that you're doing, and it still works out. The numbers still make sense. So that was where I was always at. So yeah, it depends. There's some seasons where like I'll give you an example. December usually gets pretty busy with a lot of holiday related events. I also do a lot of college university shows, so there's peaks and times for that where it gets really busy and I'm doing shows back to back to back. But then it slows back down again. So it really depends.
How long did it take for you to kind of be in a position where you were able to make a full like living out of doing magic? I mean, did it happen pretty much
Hmm.
after Canada's Got Talent or?
Well, I was always making money doing shows ever since like that time at 13 when I got paid that $100. Ever since then, I've been making money doing shows, and the number always kept going up from the 100 to wherever. And so it was always something that had like income coming in. But because I was in school for all that time, it was hard for me to really explore the full length of it because I can't make commitments where I'm on the road for a month when I'm in school. You know what I mean? Like I can't be gone. And honestly, if you're doing this full time, it will require that time, right? You want to make sure that you're available on weekends, on weeks where you're on the road, and sometimes you're flying, and the flying takes a day and a half to get there, and then you're driving an hour, and then you're doing the show, and then a day and a half back, and then an hour drive. So it's like all these things take a lot of time. It was honestly once I graduated where I was like, look, I'm already making enough money with this to sustain. Let's like double down. Let's go crazy. And that's again when Canada's Got Talent also came. And I was like, this timing couldn't have been better. So ever since then, it's just been full time doing magic, and it's been sustainable really for me.
Like, I guess it must be quite like validating, and like you must have like a lot of like belief in yourself like now, right?
Mm,
Because like you've obviously been able to kind of turn it into like a full-time job and pursued your passion as well.
right.
And
Honestly,
probably like no, I'm just
sorry.
gonna say it's probably like kind of well kind of shown like everyone who you kind of had the doubts that actually like this is like a possible thing.
Honestly, like that's so true. But I'll tell you an honest truth. Even if I wasn't making a penny, I would still have that self belief of this is gonna work. Because I think as a kid, I've always had a dream of being in entertainment, doing these things, and not just magic, even outside of magic, acting, TV, all these things, which have slowly started to fall into place for me. And um, even though there was doubt and all these things, it didn't really matter. Like I know I brought it up here because for me, I always told myself, as long as I got me, then it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Even if people are doubting or not believing it, again, it doesn't matter because my belief in myself in the future, and that's not even an egotistical thing. It's just that I know that I love this thing and I'm going to work as hard as I can to get these goals that I have in my mind. And so, as much as it is validating, and it absolutely was, at the same time, even if I didn't have any of it, I would still be doing it, and because I love it, and so I would have figured out another way.
That's pretty cool. Like when you say that you've got like other gigs kind of like lining up now, like
Mhm.
can you talk about it or
Yeah, absolutely. So right after Got Talent, or right during that time, I actually um, got signed with one of the biggest acting agencies here in Canada, and I've been working with my agent ever since and doing more TV work. I was featured on two different sitcoms with smaller episodes, and it's been a upward grind with that as well. And so, kind of figuring out and navigating that world and seeing what I can do in that space as well. So that's been really exciting and just a completely another venture, I guess, to like really figure out and work on. And it's really exciting because I'm starting from ground zero there. I didn't go into it with acting experience or anything really. It was a chance encounter where I just so happened to have met the owner of the agency, and we got into discussing, and then I started taking classes, and then we kept in touch. And over time, she was like, "Hey, I think we could do something together. Let's work." And uh, we've been working together ever since. And there's been a lot of cool and fun opportunities that have come my way because of it. And I'm learning. I'm learning as I go and trying to figure that world out as well. And it's been really fun.
like how difficult was that the transition from like magic to acting? Like what are the kind of differences that you see in it?
It was honestly surprisingly a lot easier than I expected. And I think, and I'm not saying that to diminish what acting really is, but in the sense that, like, I think I was used to the world because of magic. I understood what that world felt like. I understood rejection. I understood that, it takes time and all these things that, um, I was already very familiar with. Now, the hard part is actually learning the acting side of things, right? Because I think I'm okay at it. I've learned as I've grown. I've lived on stage, but truly like understanding what it means to be an actor and what it means to embody a character and bring that to life on stage or on screen, really, and understanding again the rejection part of it. I was very used to. Like you'll do 100 auditions and you'll hear back from 4 or 5 of them, and then from the 4 or 5, you might book one. And so it's like the numbers game. And so I didn't let it get to me. And so it was really fun and exciting just trying to learn that. Now, again, the classes really challenged me. It's like, hey, we get it. You do magic, you're on stage, but this is different. You're on camera now. You're acting as an actor and you're embodying characters and you have to learn. And that part was definitely challenging. And it's an ongoing process, an ongoing journey. I'm still learning as much as I can and trying to, navigate that part. But yeah, I think it was both really for me.
Do you think the acting might end up taking over the magic, or do you think like the magic will always kind of be there as the main focus?
I mean, I can see that the acting, one day can take over. Like if we're working on a shoot and I need to be gone for, 2, 3 months at a time, like that could possibly take over. For me, I think I'm okay with it as long as I don't like fully let go of the magic, right? Like for me, I want to grow not only, vertically, but also horizontally, right? I want to build out in that entertainment space where I'm not just doing magic, I'm acting, I'm doing magic. I love business, and running businesses and doing things. I think a really good, I guess, example of someone I'd love to, embody is Kevin Hart. I think Kevin Hart started as a comic, right? He was known for his comedy, and then eventually Kevin Hart became the actor. And now Kevin Hart is a philanthropist. He's a, entrepreneur. He's a media he runs his own production company. And so all these things are growing horizontally and vertically at the same time. So now you get both, right? So for me, like I said, I wouldn't mind if acting did take over at a certain period, but I would never let magic go. Like that is my true love, and I think it will be my vehicle going forward for a long time, hopefully.
Do you get a lot of kids coming up to you to ask them to teach you magic, like when you do events and stuff?
Not just kids, man. I get adults coming up to me asking all the time. I have no problem kind of pointing people into the right direction. I don't teach, at least not now. I mean, maybe who knows in the future, but as of now, I don't really teach myself just because it is a lot of time commitment, based behind teaching. And the thing is, a lot of people do come to me asking about magic and learning, but almost nobody actually follows through with it, because once you see how much work goes into actually learning magic, you kind of take a step back and you're like, oh wait, this is not easy. There's a lot to do, there's a lot to learn. So I've noticed that maybe all the years of me doing magic, I think maybe one or two of the people that have asked me to teach them magic or whatever have actually followed through. And that's based off of maybe more than 1,000 people who've asked me, hey, how do I learn magic? And I'll point them in the right
Whoa.
direction. But again, not most people will follow through with it. Some people will learn like one trick. They'll go and learn, one trick, which is totally cool, by the way. You can go learn one trick that you'll know for the rest of your life and you can impress anybody. But actually following through and doing magic and actually being a magician, very, very few people.
Uh, Have you done any kind of shows where you've gone abroad yet, or are you planning on doing any?
So all I've gone is to America, really. And the reason for that is there's a lot of paperwork involved with doing shows overseas. I would love to. I've been
Oh,
to London. I've been all over the world, but in order to perform, because at the end of the day, it is considered work. And if you're working
okay.
in any place outside of your home country, there's a lot of paperwork you have to figure out. Even for America, I had to get a visa to go work, and I'm a Canadian citizen, and I still needed to get a visa to go and work in the States and do shows, and it was very expensive. And so, again, it's one of those things that I'd love to, but every place that you go to has its own laws, own rules on how you can or cannot perform in that area. So because of that, it's been one of those things I'm trying to figure out still, if I can, how many places I can do at once, and how it would be logistically feasible.
Yeah, well, I'm really hoping you come to London one day. Again, I guess.
Absolutely. London's amazing. I love, I'd probably be back in February of next year, but I would love to perform there. But again, London also has its own, or the UK has its own laws and legislations around performing. And the one caveat is if you perform for free. I think in any place, like, you can get away with if you're doing a free performance. But again,
Okay.
they get very, there's a lot of questions that come up. I had a friend of mine who's a speaker, and he, before he had his visa, he was going to go do a free event in America, and at the border, he was like, "Yeah, I'm doing this free show." He got pulled over to secondary. They were questioning him for a long time. What is this? What do you do? Da, 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 da. And eventually, they just let him go do his thing. But again, anytime you say you're performing, if it's money exchange, there's a lot of rules you kind of have to follow. So, hopefully,
Okay.
fingers crossed, London would be cool to actually perform at.
I. What if you do something like where you just do it on the streets and you just got a guy like recording you or something? You
I mean,
still
that's
need to
possible.
get.
No, no, no. That's more, again. It's tricky. I'm not. You know what? I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm not a
Okay, fair
immigration
enough.
lawyer, but I do think you're fine with, like, let's just say I came to London. I'm just out on the streets doing magic tricks and I'm filming them. I don't think that's a problem. It would more so just be like, if I'm performing, I'm getting paid somehow for this. That it's like a gray area where it's like, is this work? Are you working? Like, so gray area. But again, if I'm going out doing stuff in the streets just for fun, I don't think that should be really an issue. But do
Uh,
not take my advice on this. I'm not an immigration lawyer. No.
um, how difficult is it to get mentors in this kind of field? Because you said that you've got a consultant that you bounce ideas off, but I'm going
Right.
to assume that the consultant came quite far down the line, right?
It did. Yeah. It's hard. It's not easy, because you need to, like, first of all, there aren't many magicians that are actually doing this full time and actually making like a living, and enough to a point where they can start mentoring you, let alone, you know what I mean? So the pool is already very limited, and magicians are a bit more, what's the word? Like they're picky in a way, right? Like, just because you go up to someone, a magician, and you're like, "Hey, teach me," it's not like they're gonna all of a sudden be like, "All right, I'm gonna be your mentor. I'm gonna teach you everything I know and how to build this business and da da da." Da." It takes a little bit of acquaintance and being able to show that you have some work under your belt. You're not some, random person that has just started doing magic yesterday and all of a sudden you want to mentor. You really have to show that. And then also there's the monetary side, right? Like, so, like, not all mentorship is free, but I think I believe in paying for mentorship, because then there's an exchange in value, right? Like, hey, I'm going to pay you for your valuable time so I can learn from you. And now, mind you, that's not cheap. Like, the consultant that I work with, he's not cheap. So, like, that already puts you in a different bracket where it's like, can you actually attain this? Because you need to be able to afford that. So, I think it's not easy, but it's definitely doable. Like, I don't think there's any harm in asking. I don't think there's any harm in reaching out to someone and saying, hey, love what you do. Like, can you help me with this? Now, most people or magicians are very nice, like pointers and tips. Like, absolutely. If someone messaged me and said, hey, how do you do this? I'd absolutely take some time to write up an email, send it out. Now, if you wanted to actual mentorship where I'm calling you every week and we're getting on the thing and doing this and going through your show and looking at notes, like, that takes a lot more time, a lot more commitment, where it has to be something where it makes sense. Now, again, this is just my experience. I'm sure there's people out there who were able to find mentors and things work, but for the most part, this is kind of how I would say it is really with mentorship.
Is it quite a kind of like gatekeeping within the community?
Yes and no. Like, a lot of magic is shared, right? Like, it's a shared art form. You learn through, um, again, like I said, books, DVDs, all these things that you can do. There's a lot of companies that specialize in teaching magic. They'll fly out a magician, and they'll say, hey, like, we'd love to put out a product with you where let's just say it's a book, right? They'll say, look, you write the book with all your stuff in it, blah, blah, blah. We'll produce it. We'll do this. We'll do the marketing, da, 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 and they'll sell it to other magicians. Now, that stuff, again, it's not really gatekeep. You can go and find stuff like that. But the more upper levels, I would say, like the more professional magicians who have like these closely guarded secrets, that's very, very gatekeep. Like, there's a lot of things that are very much like, oh, hey, like, two people know about this. I'm not going to show you how this works, because it's something that they want to keep and protect. Because at the end of the day, because magic is so shared, it's inevitable that there's people around the world that do similar tricks, right? Like, you might see one guy do this one trick, and then you go to, I don't know, Portugal, there might be someone there doing a similar trick because they learned it from the same source. And you can't blame them either, because it's a shared art form. So some of these higher level magicians and top working pros, they'll start being more protective of their secrets. It's hard to enforce because the IP works around magic and like who owns what, and you can't really patent a magic trick. I think David Copperfield has patented certain things in a magic trick, but it's hard to say like, oh, I invented this trick. It is my creation. Like, you can't. So even if you wanted to take legal action, it is a little bit challenging. So it really is based off of keeping it truly a secret, and then also just the respect that magicians have for other magicians, saying like, oh, that is your secret. Like, if like, to say somehow you heard it from someone else, you're kind of like, okay, I want to be careful with how I navigate this. But mind you, if they teach you something, it's fair game. You know what I mean? If they put it out to learn, like, yeah, you can go perform it. It's not a problem. But there are some stuff that are very much secret and only few people know, or like you need an invite to hear about this. I remember there was one magician who was teaching one of his like pet routines. And the only way you could learn this was if you got an invite from him or someone that he approved of, and he would only teach it in like a small kind of group setting. You know what I mean? So it's, again, only a couple people are learning at a time. It's not just publicly available for you to just go buy at any time. It has to be learned directly from him. So yeah, it definitely exists in the industry.
Have you been to any of those kind of events, or I mean, would you
So
be able to tell me even if you have?
I've definitely had my fair share of conversations with people with very secret stuff. But I don't. It's not something that's very common, and it's not always very formal either. Sometimes it's like, if you're close enough with someone, they feel comfortable around you to share something, because we have that level of respect, knowing that I'm not just going to start blabbing tomorrow and being like, hey,
Okay.
this is what he did, this is how he's doing it, or I wouldn't just go throw it in my show because he's doing it in his show. So it really depends. I definitely been in some of those conversations, but again, it's not always very formal. It could be very informally, like, hey, I'm working on this, what do you think about this, you know?
Okay. So, like, what is the consultant's role that well, he or she, I guess, plays with you? Like you said that you just bounce ideas
It's
off, but
honestly
how
just
does that
sounding
work?
board. It's just sounding board. It's truly what it is. Like, consultant, like, is a really specific role, because they come with the experience of working on TV, working behind the scenes. So they have an eye for seeing when something can work on TV or not, right? Or hey, this won't work. This won't play the same way you think it is. But the main thing is, it is a sounding board for ideas, right? So I'll write together a script of ideas and this, da, 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 and I'll piece it all together. And I'll be like, look, what do you think about this? And we'll sit there on a call like this and just go over it. And he'll be like, oh, I don't know about this. Uh, it doesn't work the way you think it's going to work. How about you try rewording this? Why don't you move this around? And it's more, again, it's really what, like, I guess an editor really is, right? It's like a sounding board, and um, to really help with the act, and see how we can make it better than it really was. And it's something that I always recommend, because some magicians have this tendency, which myself included here, of trying to do everything on their own. And it just comes from that fact of when you first start, you have to be resourceful. You don't have money. You don't have the connects to just being like, oh, let's hire these people. But as you get older and as you start to progress, I think the next best thing is hiring help, right? If you're hiring a consultant, you're hiring a director, or you're hiring a film crew, a lighting crew, whatever it is for the productions that you need, it's like, it's the smartest thing you can do. And again, hiring a consultant was one of the best things I've ever done. Period.
Right. I remember like back in the day, there used to be like, like you said, like DVDs and whatnot, like that
Right.
magicians would do. But like, how kind of common is that now? Because I like, how you've got comedy shows for like Netflix and Amazon and all of that stuff.
Right.
Um, does that have does that still exist for like magic? Because I can't remember the last time I saw like a entire like magic show or on Netflix or Amazon like that.
Yeah. So two parts. You were asking about you're asking about DVDs for magic shows, like the full length. You mean?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you this. Like, there's there used to be a time where it was like super like there's a couple guys doing it, but it was always only a few people who actually reached that level, because getting to that level is not easy. Like, that is less than 1% of the magic industry we're talking about, right? Like, there's a couple names we can name right off the bat. David Blaine, David Copperfield, Dynamo, Darren Brown. Those are the UK guys.
Yeah.
These guys that had the TV specials and shows. Again, less than 1%. There's maybe, you can count on two hands the guys that are really doing it to that level of scale. And there's also more people like that we just don't hear as much about. More like, there's some Asian magicians, out in Asia that are absolutely killing it, but like, the people out here don't know much about them. Same way how it's like, there's some UK magicians or that we don't know about here. There's some American magicians that the UK magicians don't know a lot about. Like Darren Brown and Dynamo are two names that I love. I love these two acts, and like, they're from the UK, but not a lot of people here know that name as much, or those names as much. You know
Okay.
what I mean? In terms
Yeah.
of like Netflix specials and stuff like that, in the past little while, there hasn't been too much. There's been a few guys that have been able to successfully land some Netflix shows. One of those guys I would say is Justin Willman, and he's been really successful because I think he just did his second or third special with Netflix, and they're very unique. It's not like your typical just doing street magic. There's always some kind of twist to it. One of them was called Magic for Humans, and it was like he would do like these things where he's like almost pranking people, but not. And then even this new show is like a magic prank show, really. So it's like a mix. It's very unique. It's not your traditional like, oh, you're seeing like just magic back to back to back. There's things that are happening, and there's like kind of storylines and plots. So yeah, it's different. It's hard, is really what it is, because explaining magic and why it could work in today's day and age, it's not the easiest thing. So when you're sitting in those meetings and those pitch rooms, uh, it takes a lot of like work to convince a production company to say, hey, we're going to put millions of dollars behind this project so that we can possibly get a return on it when we sell it to Netflix or we do this or whatever. So it's very limited, but there are guys doing it for sure. There are people who are really making a mark and making their way in this industry, and I think it's good for every magician, because it increases demand for magic everywhere, at the end of the day. But yeah, so and so.
Right. Who's kind of your like inspirations that you draw from with your tricks?
Hmm. Honestly, there's a lot. It comes from different places at times. It's not always magicians. I like to look for inspiration
Oh,
outside
really?
of that world. Yeah, I mean, I think in order to truly grow as an artist and as a entertainer, you can't just look at your own field. You got to look outside. You got to draw inspiration from other fields and ventures. Like stand-up comedy is one that I absolutely love. Just watching and understanding because I think comedy is the truest, purest form of entertainment. A comic is standing on stage with nothing but but a mic, and at the end of the day, they're just telling stories and jokes, and they're able to entertain a room of 100 to 3,000 people. Whereas, like, I'm coming in with a little bit more props. Now, mind you, it's less than what a traditional magician would have because I'm working with the mind more than anything. But watching those kind of art forms, or even watching anything else, you get inspiration. I love movies. I love watching movies because I think movies break that barrier of impossible, and that's kind of what magic aims to do, right? It's like I'm showing you something that you believed was impossible, but I can show you that it is possible. So I get a lot of inspiration from movies and books. I love reading. I have like 20 books on my desk because I'm always immersed in a book. I'll start one, drop it, start another one. I just keep reading. So things like that. But if you're asking for magicians specifically, I think growing up, David Blaine had a really big influence for sure because I think he made magic look really cool and very attainable because he did a lot of street magic. He'd go out on the street
Yeah.
with one camera and he's just filming magic tricks for people, and it was really attainable and made it just cool again. And he was probably the first magician I saw that wasn't wearing like a suit and tie. Him and Chris Angel probably, they're not wearing a suit and tie. They're just chill, everyday clothes, hanging out, doing their thing. Was really inspiring. Another one was Sean Farquhar. He's a Canadian magician from Vancouver. Again, not like a crazy like David Blaine level name, but he won the world champion of magic. And I remember at a young age seeing his work. I thought was really really cool. Um, Darren Brown is another big one, I think, from the UK. Again, his work is phenomenal. Like his ability to combine magic and theater together to create an experience is just unheard of. And I think uh, some of the greatest, works I've ever seen. Like the way he's able to structure acts together and put it together for a live performance, or even like his TV shows that he has, I think are phenomenal as well. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of different names that kind of come to mind, and you never know. I draw inspiration from random magicians at random times. Like I said, the books, I have a lot of them. I'll just pick out one book and I might be going through some problem where I need to figure out an idea, and I'll just read through a book. And sometimes something might come, sometimes nothing will come, but inspiration can be drawn from anywhere.
What's next for you now?
Ooh, what's next? That's tough. I mean, it's such a open road. I have no idea where this path is taking me, but I know that further down the line, I envision, I'd love to do stadium tours. I'd love to be in the big arenas and stadiums touring, doing my show. I'd love to act in more serious roles and be in movies and films, and honestly just share magic with more people, and take it to places and heights that hopefully have never been seen before. Um and just be happy. I think that's for me is like my biggest underlying thing. No matter what I do, I always ask myself the question of like, are you happy? Like, does this bring you joy and fulfillment? And again, without all the fame, the glitz and the glamour, like that's all that really matters to me. If I'm happy, if that doesn't work out, as long as I'm happy, I'll be okay. And
Yeah.
uh all the goals are really just the the fighter in me. Like I want to keep pursuing and keep getting those things. But again, I always remind myself that there's always going to be another goal. There's always going to be another goalpost to reach. And if you're not happy with where you're at and the journey, then all of it's for a waste. It doesn't really make any
Yeah.
sense.
I love that. Like I always think to myself, like how many, like especially like coming from the Malay community as well, like how
Yeah,
many people like that we must personally know who had passion for like music or dance or like
absolutely.
like in a band or like art, and they kind of had to give it up to
Hmm.
pursue a career that they're not particularly passionate about. It's just
Yeah,
it's just like make ends meet really. And
absolutely.
like I always wonder like what life would have been like for those people, like if they
Hmm.
kind of just had if they just taken like a small risk
Right.
sometimes. You know what I mean? Like,
It's scary. I mean, it's definitely scary thinking like, oh, like how do I make this work? But the reason I'm so like pushy about this, right? I'm like, man, just try it, figure it out. Is that like there has never been a better time to be alive in the sense that resources are so accessible. If you have a cell phone and if you have internet access, you can literally learn anything you want. Like you want to start a business, how do I do invoices? How do I book clients? How do I literally you can YouTube everything for free and start working on it tomorrow. Before it was the lack of information that was scary, right? Because it's like 20 years ago before, internet and this, it's like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to da, da, da? Like, man, like my parents moved from, so my parents were in India, obviously, and then they moved to Sharjah, and then they moved here. So the fact that they did all this before,
were you born in Sharjah or were
I
you
was, I
born
was
in
born in
Canada?
Sharjah. I was born in
Okay.
Sharjah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I moved when I was like
Yeah,
4 years old, 4 or 5 years
yeah,
old, something like that.
yeah. One of the okay, yeah, yeah. Same here. Like
Oh, no way.
one of the Middle East babies.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's what it's so close to India, so like a lot of people like that's their way out. They go to the Middle
Yeah,
East and
yeah.
they're able
It's
to
always like
find
one of
work
the
and
Middle East countries, and then jump off to either Canada
absolutely.
or America or the UK.
Or the UK, yeah, yeah. My parents have told me the UK is in high consideration as well, and I think Australia was the other place they were looking at. It was like between a few of those places. But yeah, but imagine our parents, like they did it at a time where information wasn't so readily accessible, which is why I'm always like, wow, like I wouldn't be able to survive, doing travel and all these things if I didn't have access to internet, all these things. But our parents did it. They moved, they did
Yeah,
everything, they figured it out. So the fact that we have this much resource available to us, I think it goes over most people's heads. We sit on our phone and watch YouTube for whatever, or on Instagram, on shorts, on reels, on TikTok, whatever it is. It's like we spend so much time, but we like imagine if we took that time and just like put it towards like the things that you want to do and the things you want to try. Like you'll learn so much so quick, and you'll be able to implement right away as well.
yeah. I think that's like that's one of the most like inspirational things, right? Because
Right,
like you said, it's so easy to just kind of get sucked into it, but if you could
right,
actually put that time to like work for yourself,
right.
like, it would be so much easier.
I mean,
Um,
look, I'm not perfect, by the way. My screen time is through the roof, but it's just that like I do make sure that I realize that I have this tool available. Like YouTube is my favorite thing in the entire world. Like there's so many things that I've learned just because I've had YouTube available to me. Like how do I build this? How do I make that? How do I do that? Like all these things, YouTube has it for free. Like, and it's just like it's so mind blowing to me that like that information exists, and like more people don't want to do anything with it. Like imagine if we went 1,000 years back in time and we gave someone YouTube and we're like, hey, anything that you ever want to learn, just search it. Just search it right here. And they'd be like that in itself is a magic trick. That's a superpower. It's like, wow, like I can do anything. And it's like, yeah, go ahead. Or Google, same
yeah,
thing. If you had Google available to you 1,000 years ago, um, it'd be insane.
yeah. You'd probably get like just called a well, yeah. You probably would literally get called a magician, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah. It's like
or burned at the stake.
it's like the all knowing. It's like he knows everything. It's like he has access to all information.
Yeah. Um, like with the obvious like rise in like technology and like AI
Mhm.
and all of that stuff, like, how do you see that impacting magic? Do you see that impacting it in any way?
I think so. I think AI and tech development, it will impact everything, including our jobs, our day to day lives. I think there's going to be a big shift in how we do things, and I think with magic, we'll just learn how to innovate. Is what's going to end up happening. Because I can't say what's going to happen because I don't know, but I think that magicians have always been very innovative. They've learned how to grow and change with the times. I do see more people doing magic that is tech related, tech involved. There's a few guys that do that currently, but I think that's going to increase with more accessibility to tech. And
Really, like what kind
yeah,
of like tech stuff, tech
there's
magic do
actually
they
a guy
do?
from the UK whose name is Jamie Allen, phenomenal magician, like insane. He incorporates tech. Like he was one of the early adopters to doing tech magic. I believe his show was called I Magician. I could be wrong, but it was something like. But Jamie Allen, if you find him, phenomenal. He's actually performing on the West End right now. If you get a chance to go see his show, highly,
Okay.
highly recommend going to see his show. Um, he started this whole thing with initially he started with iPads back when iPads first came out, and he had this thing where like magic with iPads where things are coming out of the screen and going back in, and that has evolved so much to now tech magic is its own niche, but it's very hard to accomplish because there's a lot of tech involved and moving parts and things that you need to get together. So very few people do it. There's another guy in America. His name is Trig Watson, who's another great guy. He does tech magic, and it's again, it's I don't know how else to explain it. It's literally magic with tech, and it's such a cool fusion. And I do see more of that becoming a thing when we get further into this AI and tech boom. So that kind of stuff, and also I think the way we connect with people, maybe there's more immersive experiences where you can watch a show with an Apple Vision Pro from the UK while I'm performing in Canada. Who knows? Like there's, I think, endless possibilities. It'll just be a thing of adapting and growing. I know a lot of people right now are worried and complaining about these changes, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things that either you can stand there and be upset and just get hit with the wave, or you can ride the wave. You understand that the change is coming and you grow with it. You learn from it and you see what you can do and build from
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, I guess it would make like the visa problems like a lot more easier, right? If you can
Yeah,
just perform from
100%.
Canada and like
No,
I
but
can
you know
just
what? Who knows what will change though? What if there's rules now saying, oh, if you're in Canada, you can only perform. So things will change.
uh
That's what I'm saying. There will be
yeah.
changes of how people are able to interact and do these things. Because think about it, like before the internet came out, there weren't many rules on like, oh, this can be done or this can't be done or you can't access this or you can't. So the moment that the internet became a thing and everyone's doing it, now there's rules and regulations to what can and can't be done, right? So it'll be one of those things that once it becomes normal, it becomes accessible to everyone, rules will come around how things can be done. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. I think like that about wraps up everything that I want to kind of like ask and kind of get to know.
Yeah,
But thank you so much for coming on. I
absolutely, man.
really I really hope that you do come to London and perform, and I really hope I get to see it.
That would be so much fun, man. I definitely a dream for me to perform at the West End. Like that's on my bucket list of things to do, before I die, hopefully. But I also understand the caliber of talent that comes there. I never forget, what it takes to go into producing these massive shows, because I will say this, there is a difference between like a one-man show that I do when I get hired for a corporate performance, so like a company hiring me to come do, versus like a full theatrical production. I love these theatrical shows, man, which is why I keep bringing up Darren Brown, but it takes a lot of time, team effort, all these things that go into, which is not possible when you just get booked to come do a corporate holiday event, you have a gala dinner, you have a stage. It's like it's not your environment, versus when you have a theater and you're doing a run for 20, 30 days or whatever your runtime is, and you're able to build out a set and do these things. So hopefully, man, one day for sure, I'm going to see you next year if I can do London on a smaller scale, but it'd be kind of cool, man. I've also heard the Malu community out there is super popping. It'd be great to tap in with the
Yeah,
community and just,
definitely.
and put something together for the people.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's something really kind of like almost beautiful happening within the community where
Hmm.
we've somehow like automatically just embraced the arts like all of a sudden. And there's
Hmm.
a lot of like people doing music who are popping off. There's like
Nice.
bands, musicians, like artists, like all of that is
It's
like kind
amazing.
of coming to the forefront, like which is
Right,
really nice
right,
to see.
right.
Like it's like it makes me quite like hopeful for our community, I guess, like in a very
Mm.
strange way.
Dude, I love that. That's amazing. And I think, again, the more that people do it, the more other people will see it and they'll want to do it and they'll grow. And I think it's beautiful for the community. And I think it'll also help parents realize that this is normal, right? Like the more kids that they see doing it, the more parents will start to see, like, oh, wait, this is okay. Like my kid will be okay. They'll be fine. They'll figure it out, and they'll be good. And yeah, that's amazing. That's beautiful. And I think I'm starting to see it a little bit in Canada as well. Maybe not as much as the UK, but I do see it for sure happening here as well.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like, I think it's really just gonna keep growing and like kind
Hmm.
of until it kind of matches up with whatever like the
Right,
kind of Western attitudes are. Because like
right, right.
there's this like idea that it takes 3 generations for a kind of community to fully like integrate into whichever
Mm,
community they've like emigrated into. And I
right,
think like
right,
that's
right, right.
like, and I kind of think that's completely true because
Mm,
like like there's so much cultural barriers that we kind of like break down bit by bit,
hmm, hmm,
and it
hmm.
does happen slowly, but like
Right,
it will surely happen.
right. 100%. And we have some of those pioneers, the people who had to push early on, and they've started the wave, and it's inevitable. It'll over time it'll get better, and more people doing things that they love, which is amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Savio. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely, man.
For everyone listening, check out his acts on Instagram and on YouTube as well. Some really, really sick shows.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on, and it was a pleasure having a chat with you, my friend.
Thank you so much. It was really great talking to you. Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Have you ever done like anything like on camera? Like because I don't know if you'd be able to do it right now, but
Like,
if
you mean virtually?
Yeah.
Like this?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I knew you were going to ask me that question. So I actually did something before I started. I actually did something.
Sorry, go on.
No, I did something because I knew you were going to ask me that question.
Oh, okay. Oh,
because
cool.
I'm my
Okay.
right. Because that's what I do, right? I mean,
yeah.
I'm just messing with you. But do
Okay.
you want to see something right now?
Yeah. Go on.
Okay, cool. I actually did this. I took a deck of cards with me before I started, and I did something special to this deck of cards, and I'll tell you what I did in a second. But Alan, I want you to do this. I want you to imagine right now that all the cards in a deck are spread out in front of you, and you can see it in the air, kind of like Matrix style, Neo style, and you see all the cards flying around you. I want you to look at all the cards you see, and I want you to finally focus in on one card. But I want you to change your mind a couple times. I want you to see one, jump to the other. The reason I'm asking you to do this is most times when I ask people to name a card, if I do it really quick, people will say the Ace of Spades or Queen of Hearts. Now you can pick those, that's up to you, but this is just, you understand how people think after a while, and this is very common that I see. So I want you to change your mind a couple times and land on one card. And let me know when you got it.
Do you want me to close my eyes or?
It's up to you, whatever feels more comfortable to you.
Okay.
And when you got it, you can open your eyes, okay? Let me know. You got it? You got one?
Yeah.
Perfect. You can open your eyes now. Alan, for the listeners at home, be honest, I've been holding this in my hand the whole time. We didn't set anything up before this call started, correct?
No, we didn't.
I didn't pay you any kind of money to tell you to pick this card specifically.
Nah,
For the first time, can you tell everybody what was the card you were thinking of right now?
I was thinking of the Six of Hearts.
The Six of Hearts. Was there any reason for that card?
No, it's just
it just randomly popped up. That's good.
It just popped into my head.
That's good. So maybe there was a subtle influence here, but I was holding this box. There was a heart on the box like this. But what I told you before I started, I did something to this deck. What I didn't tell you was I actually turned over one card in this deck. So it's the only card facing the wrong way in the entire deck of cards. You take a look, everything else. There's only one card facing the wrong way. And I'm so happy you said the Six of Hearts because that's also what I had turned around as well.
Dude, that's fucking insane. But I can't believe I almost didn't ask you to do a trick as well. That would have been such a loss.
No, I knew it was
crazy.
I knew it was
coming. Crazy. All right, well, I'll cut that bit out and then put it
sure, yeah,
before we
absolutely,
finish.
Man. Absolutely.
Might put that as a teaser as well because that's insane. Whoa.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Hopefully you can see a show one day in person, live show. Yeah,
man, I really hope so. Like when I put this out, do you mind if I do it as invite you as a collaborator or?
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, but whenever you come to London,
so you're in London.
I live half an hour away from London, so I live in Reading.
In Reading, okay.
30 minutes away from London.
Okay.
But if you ever come to London, put it out or whatever, and I'll
absolutely
definitely come.
I'll definitely be. I definitely will be, or I shouldn't say definitely, but most likely will be back in February of next year. But I'm coming to attend an event. Actually, the biggest magic convention, or one of the biggest magic conventions in the world, happens actually in the UK. It's not in London. It's in Blackpool.
Blackpool. Okay.
Yeah. So, but if I do come, I'm always going to spend time in London because Blackpool does not have much. So I'll probably be there. If I can actually sort out the. Yeah, I know it's super random, but it's because the organizers of the conventions are from Blackpool, and they just decided this is where we're going to host it, and we're going to do it here. I'll be honest, I don't know if they're going to last there for much longer, just because like the size of the people that are like, there's so many people that come to this convention, and like the
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure there, like if they're able to actually accommodate and do these things, like I don't know if it'll be like that forever, but they're from Blackpool, so that's why they host it there. Which is, again, anytime I
Okay.
tell anyone from the UK that this convention's in Blackpool, they're like, why? Like, why Blackpool of all
Yeah.
places? And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's why I look so confused at the moment. Blackpool's such a strange place to do it, but
Yeah, yeah.
no.
They have people flying in from literally all across the world just to get to Blackpool, to attend this
That's so
conference
funny.
convention. Myself included. I had to take like 2 trains to get to Blackpool and make it there for the weekend, but it was fun. It was a good experience nonetheless.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you just came and went, you mean?
I was just there. I was there in Feb. It happens in Feb.
Okay, okay. I thought you said you're coming next February as well.
I'll most likely come back to attend again for the following year.
Okay.
Or I might. So the World Championships of Magic is actually, it's like the Olympics of Magic is happening next year, which is in Torino. So if the timings work out, I might do both and like see if I can just stay in Torino and then go to London, or London and then, because once I'm in anywhere in Europe, like it's just easier to, or the UK, like it's easier to get to other places in Europe or whatever it is, like
Yeah.
to fly around versus flying from here all the way there and then trying to fly around. So we'll see. I don't know. Fingers crossed. Next year is a long way from now, so hopefully it'll happen. I'm gonna see if I can get the paperwork stuff sorted out. I'm actually try to do a show out in London during that time as well, so I can triple up on everything. I can attend this conference, I can do my show, and then I can hit Torino as well. Maybe, who knows?
That'd be really cool. But
Yeah,
no. Yeah, I guess like now I'll wrap up.
sounds good.
Thank you
Yeah,
for that. Yeah,
absolutely, man.
thank you.
I appreciate
Yeah,
you.
thank you for coming on. I really appreciate this, and
Absolutely.
I wish you all the best.
Likewise, my friend. Let me know when this goes up.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.